Hello.
Are you the angel who does duck reproduction?
I am, though it's not just bird reproduction. I got an award for my dinosaur cloaca.
Right. Sign here.
Oh, okay. What are these?
Oh, these are duck penis plants.
Duck penis plants. And you see, birds don't really have penises in the traditional sense.
Yeah. Okay, Dr. Cloaca. What will I do now? Check these out.
Oh dear. Why is it a corkscrew? Why is it twice the length of its body?
I'm sure God has a plan. Cheers.
Well, cheers,
Cheers.
Mr. Duck.
Oh.
Welcome to creation.
Oh, cheers, God.
Yeah, very nice.
Thanks for the invite.
Absolutely. It's not every day you get made. Oh, I don't know if I need to have any more. I don't normally have.
Oh, bottoms up.
Oh, well, yeah, a little bit more.
Okay.
It's very nice. You should be having some.
I will too. Good stuff. Yes. Good stuff.
Good angels. It's so difficult. The giraffe. They made fun of the giraffe, but that neck. The stuff is gonna happen. They're gonna.
I love the neck. The
need
neck
the
is
neck.
great.
It's a good
Keep
neck.
the neck. I'm needing to talk to you about
anything. What? I'll do anything for you. What do you need?
Well, it's kind of hard to, talk about, but it's the whole duck sex thing.
Oh
yeah. I need a little help in that department.
Anything you want. I got my design pad right here. Let's see. Make a little.
Yeah, if you could make it a little longer, and then.
Would you want a corkscrew?
Perfect. Yes.
Cheers.
Cheers.
So sometimes we come up with stuff. Sneaky Duck, says Kristen, and Mike says he loves me some blasphemy. Yeah, so anyway, welcome. I'm really excited to be here. I know you're really excited to be here. I know Davey's really excited to be here.
I think we just got confirmation that God uses an Apple iPad. He's an Apple user.
Right. An Apple user. I mean, who, of course.
I get him on iMessage.
So I see a lot of you here. I'm really excited. I've been, all the regulars are here. Leanne reminds us, if you want to follow along live on the live chat, switch to live chat instead of top chat. Because who do we have tonight? We have Davey. Rachel. Oh, we're so excited that you're here. Rachel Feltman, who is the author of Been There, Done That. And by golly, you have been there and done that.
I have. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Oh, we're thrilled. I've had a couple people throwing and several people saying, hey, the cocktail is amazing for this evening. And I know you've got, yes, and I've got I even found some rose petals to stick on top there.
Wow.
So cheers to that. Yeah.
Cheers.
Not everybody had the rose water. It is true. Leanne says, and I think I have to agree, you look amazing. You're looking great. With all that green. And I have to say, we had a lot of fun. We were coming. So our maven, our cocktail maven, Kat, she comes up with the cocktails and she was like, I feel like we need something kind of sleek and kind of sexy and pink. So we have a whole contest online with the names. Kat, I hope you're here tonight because I don't know who won that contest. But I know which ones were at the top. So when we do the announcements, we'll show you that. Rachel, one of the most amazing things that happens is I listen to books on tape, right? And I listen to them while I'm on my treadmill. And so I judge a book by how many times I fall off the treadmill while I'm writing. And the moment when you said that people would complain saying, I liked the history when men were men and women were miserable as God intended, right against the wall of it's a small space, but yeah, I kissed some concrete. I just want to say that to me, that's high praise.
I'm sorry. And you're welcome. What else can I say?
So very excited. While one of the things that is true, all of the peculiars, I was actually going to try, Davey, maybe you can help me catch up here, but several people were just saying hi, saying where they're from. We've got people from all over the country and in some other countries joining us tonight.
Lots
And
of
everybody really.
those. I'm curious. I'm waiting to see how steamy this episode gets.
Yeah, actually,
The
one of our
peculiar chat
peculiars
can
said
go
that she's.
many different directions.
Who was it was saying she's cold? She's like, I'm cold. I hope that this gets steamy. Who wrote that? I can't find it now. I think it might have been Kristen. Was that you?
I do agree with Anthro Girl here that Rachel did an amazing job with the audiobook.
Thank
this
you.
helps with the whole falling off the treadmill thing, is that your comedic timing, Rachel, is, and also you just have a wonderful way of saying the word dick. I don't know why, but it just rolls
that
off,
one I've never gotten before, and I'm really flattered. So thank you for noticing.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
Not everybody says it like that.
It's like a very uncommon thing, especially for first-time authors, to get asked to read their audiobooks. Generally, you have to be kind of like a celebrity author before they will deign to let you do that.
You're a celebrity in our book.
Well, because the following I do have is through audio, because I host a podcast called The Weirdest Thing I Learned This Week. They were like, I don't know, maybe some of the people who listen to this podcast will buy the audiobook. And I think everyone, myself, my engineer, the actual head of audio, was pleasantly surprised that my skills actually transferred. There was one review of the audiobook recently that said that at times it felt like I was sharing a sexy secret. And I was like, that is all I want. Thank you so much.
My goal in life, right? Amanda said she's going to check it out and recommend it to her audiobook group.
Oh, yay.
Yeah, and we both know, me and Brandy both know behind the scenes how difficult that is. It's not just reading your book.
It is many hours in an uncomfortable chair, because you can't be in a chair that might go squeak. So
and no, you cannot.
Honestly, a physically grueling process. But my engineer, Michelle, was amazing. And I felt so lucky to get the opportunity to read it myself, because as my first book, and one full of like stupid jokes that I wrote, it would have felt very weird to hear someone else reading it.
I can see that.
But I love that people have loved the audiobook, because I definitely walked out being like, who knows?
Well, your whole comment about like being a switch and not being able to make up your mind, and I was like, that just wouldn't come off right from someone else, you know? Like it would just be kind of
totally, absolutely. No, there were parts of that audiobook that it wasn't until I was sitting there saying it out loud that I was like, my mom's gonna read this. When it was in text, it didn't really
right. Yeah, it doesn't resonate quite the same, does it?
It didn't hit me. But then I was like,
Yeah,
yes.
Well, Antho Girl says it. She's like, no one else would have done the jokes right. It was absolutely the right choice to let you read it. We're starting to have questions queue up, including one from Kristen Meston. It does take a couple of minutes for these to populate. And so what I'm going to ask is those of you who are out there in the chat world, go ahead and keep writing your questions so that I can get to them. And while we are doing that, we'll do a few peculiar announcements. So, Davey, take it away. Well, actually, I'll take it away. Just show me the screens. The first thing I want to say is that we have a ton of ways to connect with Peculiar Book Club, and I'm always terrible about reminding everybody about them, but we have a Facebook page and we also have a Facebook group. Both of them are lovely. The Facebook group, y'all get to be the sort of stars of that. I'm going to put, I know, Davey, I'm making typey noises, but I'm trying to get it in the chat.
I've got it.
So, you add them in? Okay, sorry, you do that. The Facebook page and the Facebook group are great. We are increasing our numbers. We have probably about getting close to 2,000 members on the page and about, I think, 600 or 700 members in the group. And we always talk about all of our weird hobbies, and it's great. Like we just get to go on there and be like, hey, I juggle spoons, you know. Nobody does that yet, but if that's you, like we're probably your group. So that's the first thing. We also have, if you go to my website, which is brandyschillace.com, but also if you do peculiarbookclub.com, it also goes there. You can sign up for the Peculiar Book Club newsletter, and we have a regular newsletter. You won't miss anything. I send it out an alarming number of times, at least once, sometimes twice a week. So please do check that out. That's a good way to connect with us too. And we're also on Twitter and Instagram and all of the places on Earth. So next up, we have our winners. So we try to pick a winner every time. And we have Stephen Reed was the winner of our t-shirt, and we're also giving away a mug tonight. And we have Robert Vano. Robert, if you are out there tonight with us, please make sure that you contact me directly. You can send to peculiar@bschillace.com, which is where you got your Eventbrite link. And I will be sending you a lovely mug, which has a squid on it and talks about being weird and awesome. Next up. Oh, yes, this is the cocktail. So last I checked, we were competing between Afternoon Delight and Rosie Conk. And I think Rosie Conk was winning. But if I am wrong and you guys know, please make sure that you let me know throughout the course of the evening. But I think this is a Rosie Conk, which I love. So yes, many cheers to all of you for that. And it's bubbly and rosy. Charming Disaster, their Kickstarter, it says coming soon. It's actually ongoing now. It goes to the end of the month. If you haven't contributed and you want to, please do. They are doing an album and also an Oracle deck, which is, if you've never seen a Charming Disaster full show, you're in for a treat because we're doing one for our winter concert. They read your tarot. They read the tarot of the audience during the show. It's amazing. And now they're going to have their own deck. So that's pretty fun.
I believe they're up to a goal, a level where if they reach that level, he'll grow his handlebar mustache back.
Yes, I did see the beginnings of
last from social media. From that.
Yes. And Lorelei Peterson did mention that the drink did have a slightly penis-y quality to that photo. Now that you mentioned it, it kind of actually, I hadn't sort of picked up on that, but you're right. And next is, oh yes, season 4 is coming up. So if you're a VIP, and that means you're already a subscriber with us, then you've actually gotten a chance to get in on early registration. But for those of you who are not already VIPs, don't worry, you can join us and you have the coolest swag in the world. And what it means is we have 10 free shows and we also have 10 shows, which are VIP shows. You get all of them if you join us as subscribers. And that opens on the 27th during actually the day before, but during our Halloween show. So please, this is just a wee sneak peek at some of the things you might notice that like Ed Young is up there, who will be joining us. And so is, we have Mary Roach back again, of course, and Katie Mack, Astro Katie. So it's going to be a fun year. Stephen Gallagher, we're going to do screenwriting and also talk about comics. It's going to be a good year. If you're interested, stay tuned. And if you are on our newsletter list, you'll hear about it first. But it'll also be up on Facebook and all the other places in the world. Next. Oh, yes. Discord party. We have an after party after the show because we all have so many things to say. And it's only going to get like, I can tell already by the number of things that are populating in the comments that we're going to have more to say. So after the show is over, we have a Discord after party where you can actually see each other and talk. And it's great. And the Discord link is down there. Davey, I don't know if you can see it. We can put that in the, oh, you did already. Well done. And then you can join us and we can have that talk too. Is that all of them? Did I get them all?
You got them. Do you want a prize for that? No.
I get to drink this cocktail that I made for myself. A penis-shaped yes. Cocktail. Well, there you go. It's a cocktail.
I think this whole book was a cocktail in a way.
This whole book was a cocktail.
Speaking of transitions.
All right, now I have to go all the way back up and start at the top for these questions. And I'm going to start with Kristen's, which is, if you had to take any one subject covered in the book and make it into its own book, what would it be?
That's such a good question. And there are so many topics in this book. I think I'm pretty in a self-deprecating but also very genuine way. I'm pretty clear throughout the book that like this is the hors d'oeuvres course of the history of sex. So like quite literally anything I talk about could be its own whole book. I think if I were going to expand on any one topic, it would probably be masturbation. The masturbation chapter was the first one that I was able to like write in one shot. It felt great. It felt fun.
It was self-serving.
I just shut myself up alone in the study, got cozy, and let the magic happen. But that was like a turning point for me writing wise, but I think it's because it's a subject that I have always thought had so many interesting historical anecdotes and is
Oh, yeah.
so universal and so interesting to write about, and something that is like so incredibly stigmatized, given that like
Mhm.
almost literally everyone does it.
Oh, yeah.
So yes, if I was gonna pick one thing that was gonna be
That's
like a
great.
goofy book all about that, it would be masturbation.
I have 2 funny masturbation stories, which I feel I now must tell.
Only two.
Only 2, well, two that involve me embarrassing other people. So when I was a professor back before I absconded from academe, I was teaching a class on Victorian sexuality, and I said the word masturbation, and I'm in a small town in the Midwest at a college that's also small, and a young lady fell out of her desk, like onto the floor. And I was like, oh my
Get
God.
the smelling salts.
Right. I was like, is it because I said masturbation? And the whole class was just like, ah. So I was like, okay, we're going to practice this. We got to learn how to say this word. So I had us all stand up and sing the word masturbate. We're like, masturbation. And at that moment, the chair of my department walked out of the classroom. I was like, it's fine. Everything's good in here. We're just sorting our sexuality out. So that was one good one. The other masturbation story I have is I was at a medical museum. That's actually how I met Davey. And we had a section on talking about masturbation. And we had this hilarious French book that was like, if you masturbate, you'll die.
Oh,
and so I was right. So I was showing the students that it was a high school class. So lots of boys and girls of about like 15. And I was like, yeah, so this book says if you masturbate, you die, which we all know can't be true because you would all be dead. And I was told I wasn't allowed to say that to students anymore after that.
Tough but fair. Tough but fair.
It's true though.
It's true. Listen, more teenagers.
I know.
More teenagers should be aware that it's fine.
It's totally fine. Our friend Medium 7 Up here says, how do I get you to sign my audiobook? Actually, I will check. We've been selling your signed book plates we've been selling the book plates in it. If there's any left over, maybe I can send you one to Boston there, Miles. You could just let me know.
Also, I have a good friend named Miles from Boston. Are you my good friend, Miles from Boston? I would just like to know if you are. It's okay if you're just another Miles in Boston.
How many Miles could there be in Boston?
Don't be cool if you're the one that I know very well. But yeah, I also I'm always happy to send book plates to people if they like DM me on Twitter or my kind of like public facing email is in my Twitter bio and on my website. It's very easy to find. And there has yet to be a rush. So I'm comfortable saying that I will happily send one to anyone who requests one. I'll let you know if that becomes like unsustainable, but I don't see that happening.
So Anthro Girl says the switch thing may or may not be written on a Post-it on my desk, and my coworkers are confused. Also, the comment about chicken blood on dicks, we got to get to the whole contraception thing in a little bit here, but yeah, I worked in a contraception. It wasn't just a medical museum. It was actually a museum of historical contraception. So I look forward to us having those conversations here in a little while. Let's see here. Who else? David, you might have to help me out here.
Come on, Peculiars. This is your chance to ask.
I know.
Great,
and
Rachel
I might have
any of your sultry and sexy questions. I mean, we could turn this into Peculiar Book Club After Dark if we need to.
If the girls like lit some candles, just went to town till the completion of the masturbation chapter. Love it. Mike says, sometimes teachers have to write 504 plans for students who are self-soothers in the masturbatory sense.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. I can see that happening. The presence, unique challenges in a high school classroom. I bet. That's Mike Breen asking that question. Kristen says, I've got another question. I'm not sure I knew before that chastity belts were probably fake. Was that something you were surprised by?
So this was trying to figure out where to start the answer to this. So the reason I have a podcast that's about surprising weird facts through history is that there are a lot of things that I just have rattling around in my head But I'm like, everybody knows that. And then people at work would be like, no, people don't. And yeah, it is my Miles from Boston. Hi, Miles.
And Paige as well.
And Paige. So I have a lot of random information rattling on my head. This is something I've been known for since childhood, for better and for worse. Useful information sometimes, but a lot of information, absolutely. And chastity belts was definitely something that I had learned at some point that they were probably fake, and then I had like not pursued that further. It had gotten tucked away, so I was aware that
Right.
our like mainstream narrative of what a chastity belt was fake. Definitely the details of sort of why it seems that falsehood arose, and sort of the like particulars of like how very not real they were. That was new to me. But it wasn't totally surprising, because I was like, I knew at minimum that like that whole like Maid Marian in Robin Hood Men in Tights scenario had not occurred.
The perfect size.
But yeah, I think I was pleasantly surprised that it was yet another example of, you know, sort of our really deep-seated desire to like dunk on our recent predecessors and be like, we have evolved. Do you know what they used to do 100 years ago? Which ended up, of course, being like a huge meta narrative of the book. So I was pleasantly surprised that like chastity belts kind of just fit into that whole thing.
Like a key, almost, you know.
Exactly.
It's not, though, as the sheriff says, it's not the size, it's how you use it. You know, it's funny because, of course, I'm an 18th century scholar who then accidentally kind of ended up being a Victorian scholar too. And the Victorians are always like, you know, we think of the Victorians as being very prudish. And part of this is because they were referring back to the 18th century was like a barroom brawl that lasted for 100 years. I mean, they were just sexing everyone all the time, and men wore dress tights. And it was, you think about it, you got a bunch of guys walking around with very tight tights and wigs. I mean, it was, and heels. It was a whole thing. It was like basically a drag queen's dream. And then
now you want to make it say we're men in tights.
That's right. Around the floor, looking for fight.
And blinking. We should just. I'm gonna have to watch that movie again now. But the Victorians were actually not that prudish either. It was just like they had this veneer of like, well, you know, we don't do those things behind the sheets. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Yeah, and the Victorian era comes up on The Weirdest Thing I Learned This Week all the time, because it really was this society-wide adolescence in Europe and America, where people were like, what if there's no God? What happens when you die? There's electricity now. I'm very confused. And people just believed weird stuff, did weird stuff. But yeah, there was that veneer of repression because they were like, we do those things privately. But they did a lot of things privately. They did a lot.
They did a lot of things. They did some of them publicly, like genital massage to cure hysteria, which I think is hilarious. You can't tell me that some of the women weren't like, no, I need to go to the doctor right now, and knew exactly what they were up to. Oh, I got another question here. Leanne asked, tell us about your podcast. I'm a fan of your podcast. Not everyone's going to know that you have a podcast. Rachel Feltman's podcast is
The Weirdest Thing I Learned This Week. It is a podcast by Popular Science. Even though I'm no longer with PopSci full time, I still host the podcast, and the podcast is going to continue going for as long as they let me do it. So fortnightly during a season, we get together and it's me and 2 other co-hosts, which it rotates. Lately, it's pretty typical for one of those co-hosts to be a guest. Maybe even in the near future, someone familiar to all of y'all, perhaps. And then we just each share some kind of like fact or story that is weird, surprising, scary, hilarious. Usually it's like, broadly speaking about health or science, but like, broadly speaking, we've been around for a few seasons, so we're not too picky. And we just like, I don't know, it's been described by some fans as like, it's like hanging out with your nerdiest friends and drinking some wine and just listening to them like talk about their hyperfixation in a really funny way. And
sounds familiar probably to all of us. That might be what we're doing, but with video. Just a video version.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. I love doing it, and we have a lot of loyal weirdos. And yeah, a lot of the, if you liked the book, you will like the podcast. They're very much both just like me.
It's a wonderful thing, and it's also because we can hear your voice and your cadence and everything, and it's really wonderful. So we can put that in the chat links maybe, but it's really great. If you're a peculiar fan of our show, you're going to like that podcast. I'll just throw that out there. You should there's a lot of crossover here. Another question comes from Paige, actually. She says, what's a favorite story that didn't make it into the book? Which I know we kind of sideways asked that question earlier, but this is a little different. Do you have something that you're like, oh, damn, cutting room floor drama?
Well, honestly, like about once a week, I either come across something new or remember something that I'm like, oh, crap. That should have gone in the book.
Sequel.
Yeah. Well, I'm probably starting a newsletter soon. That at least to start out is basically going to be cutting room floor stuff from the book. So just kind of continuing on the theme of like weird sex stuff from the natural world and from history. If I was going to pick one thing that I was like really annoyed with myself that I didn't include it, I definitely intended to have some stuff about like queer Vikings, and then that was like in some of the like press copy for the book, because I was like, at the time that the marketing team like asked me to write down interesting stuff, I was like, yeah, I'm reading about Vikings today. I cannot remember what I was going to say about Vikings in the book. So keep an eye on my Twitter, because soon I'm going to be starting a newsletter. And when I figure out what exactly I was going to say about gay Vikings, it'll be in there.
When you so as soon as you have it, I was just going to say, let us know. I will put your newsletter in my newsletter. So if people are following mine, right? Like we'll get this handled. We'll make sure that this happens. And Inez Lindsay actually asked a question too, which I sort of related. So we did a whole radium thing last year, and it says, before Viagra, radium was used to help men. Does your book cover any of the male issues? And I know that it does, but I was wondering, like, penises working was mostly what we talked about in the book, but there's still this sort of penis is not working issue.
Sure. Yeah. No, I mean, I have a whole chapter really about sort of our attempts to control desire and fecundity. And most of the research on that and writing on that historically has been focused on people with penises. Go figure. Yeah. That is how history works. But so there's a lot in the book about people trying to create erections, failing to create erections. Of course, some really comical stuff from history. I mean, one thing that stands out in my memory is there was a general thing in ancient Rome, and I think in ancient Greece too. So much crossover with the medical practice in those eras. But like about wind and pneuma and like literally like the heat of your body and the wind of your body. And there were definitely some scholars who thought that creating more wind would help you, be more potent and get an erection. So they would tell you to eat like foods that made you kind of hot and farty. They were like cabbage, beans.
Oh God!
It was like little air pump.
You're like, well, I'm definitely potent, but maybe not in the way you thought.
Yeah. Which is like charming to me because it's one of those things where it's like, listen, I get it. I understand why you thought that was how it worked. Clearly, something was going in there that gave it rigidity. The answer is blood, of course. We know now. But there was a time
now
when
I'm
they
thinking
thought
about
maybe it was air.
About the airplane movie where they have to blow up the. Never mind. We've got a lot of references. We've got the Robin Hood Men in Tights. We've got a lot of references happening today to pop culture. Oh my gosh, there's so much going on now. Okay, we said ask questions, y'all did. Kristen says, my husband totally did not believe the urology conference story and yelled at me to stop talking mid-story when we reached the coffee drive-through window last night. Where did you find it? And you'll have to give just a little preview of what the story is for folks who haven't read it yet.
Yeah, so the man who Giles Brindley, who kind of created the first real medical intervention for erectile dysfunction, which was injectable.
Right.
This was before Viagra. But it was in that modern medicine era, it was very much considered a mental issue, and mental issues were not talked about very seriously. So not only did they not think it was a physiological problem, but that meant that it was something you should be kind of embarrassed about. And it meant you were just like a weak man. And of course, erectile dysfunction is incredibly common. So a lot of the people who were probably saying some of these disparaging things about erectile dysfunction had it. And we're just like, not me. I have such powerful, strong erections. And he was really one of the first researchers to be like, this is a physical problem and we can find a physical solution. And there's still injectable treatments for erectile dysfunction. It's listen, Viagra works really well, and sometimes it's not enough. But anyway,
there you go.
He very famously, and there are some people who say this didn't happen, but there is at least one account of it in the British Medical Journal, which is good enough for me. He was at a conference and he was displaying his findings on his self-experimentation in inducing erections with injectable substances. And he, according to this account in the British Medical Journal, he intended to show off his erection through a thin pair of track pants. And it was important that it be in person because he had photos in a slideshow, but he was like, there could have been a fluffer. I understand. You might think that I'm making this up, but obviously no one is aroused by giving a talk at a urology conference, which I'm like, someone is, Giles. But he wasn't, I don't think. So he meant to turn to the side and show off his erection in his track pants. And then according to some sources, it was not sufficiently visible. And so perhaps at the request of his colleagues, he pulled his pants down. So I want to be very clear that one of the things we don't know is that it's totally possible that this was a very consensual dropping of trout. That is unknown. And people, how did I find this?
I mean, it's just keeping your junk out for science. That's that's what that is.
But the short answer to how did I find this is that it is an infamous legend in the history of medicine, because Eurodynamic conferences are not exactly known for thrilling, shocking events.
Right.
So people have talked about this for decades to come.
This is too good.
how exactly what happened, like we'll never know. But
We'll
like I
never
said,
know.
there's a paper in the British Medical Journal where someone is like, I have tried to wrangle all of the accounts of this evening, which thank God.
I think the moral of the story is Rachel has the greatest search history of anybody in the world. I think that's
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, yours is going to be like better and more fun. Mine is going to get me arrested someday is what I'm worried about. Like Brady's trying to take someone's heads off or something and transplant them onto other heads or bodies.
And I understand what Kristen is saying, because there were definitely times where I was listening to the audiobook and we pulled up to meet my in-laws for a hike, and my wife was like, let's mute the book. Let's pause the book before we get there.
Totally fair. The hardest thing to Google, honestly, was when I was trying to find more stuff about like early photo and video porn, like at the beginning of those technologies, because when you search erotica or porn with any keyword, what will come up is just erotica or porn about that thing.
Yeah.
So I had to get very creative to try to find some actual like academic literature.
Amber Girl says your search history might get you arrested too, but it will be a very different task force. Yeah. No, I run into this on myself, though, for different reasons. I was trying to look up Toxic Sushi, which is apparently a band. And so it was very difficult to find out about toxins in sushi. But it's not as much fun, though, as looking at porn, I think. I can't believe we're already at the midpoint of the show. We're ready for a musical break. And so you guys, there's so much more, and we have to get back and talk about crocodile dung, because I had some in a small vial, and we need to talk about that a lot. So that's got to happen. We've got a couple other people here. Mike Breen says, pro tip, if you want to do online shopping with Dick's Sporting Goods, you might need to type the whole name. I bet that is probably true. Stephanie says, laughing her ass off. Okay, so we're going to take a quick break for, as Leanne points out, some banjo. That's right. This is one of our, one of the new bands that we have had coming on to do musical numbers with us. This is Curtis Eller. I've been putting some of his shows. He's on tour right now. I've been putting them up on our website as well. So without further ado, a musical interlude.
Hello, peculiar people. My name is Curtis Eller. I'm going to be your banjo player for the next couple of minutes. I want to sing you a song about a guy named Busby Berkeley. If you don't know who Busby Berkeley was, I'll tell you. He was a choreographer. And in Hollywood, back in the 1930s, Busby Berkeley gave us that wonderful moment where the showgirls are doing their thing up on the stage and the camera pans back and glides over the audience, drifts up to the ceiling and looks down. And all of those dancers have created a beautiful, symmetrical, kaleidoscopic pinwheel pattern with their beautiful blonde legs and their cold, dead eyes. It's a moment that always fills my heart with joy. And if you're anything like me, and you suffer from a debilitating fear of death, my advice to you is to put a Busby Berkeley film on, fast forward, straight to the dance sequence, and I promise, within 2 minutes, you're going to feel right as Roosevelt. I do not have to worry, because I know what's in store when the angels crowd around and cast their shadow on my door. And there will be no sorrow when they call the final dance. I don't mind, because I made arrangements in advance. I left instructions for my funeral with the camera crew, a take me down to MGM. They'll know what to do. Tell these Hollywood angels the time has come to gather round. And there will be no sweeter sound. I want Marlene Dietrich singing Lily Marlene when they send me down to the front line. And if it's got to rain, well, I want Gene Kelly dancing so I can rise above my fear. Hey, look, the gang's all here. That's Carmen Miranda to wash away my blue. Esther Williams drinking champagne by the swimming pool. Hey, that's Rudy Valley singing in that sweet baritone. Somebody get on the phone and get me Hardball Marks up on the bandstand. I need a Hollywood miracle, a brand new show, a Busby Berkeley funeral. Don't you know? I want a Busby Berkeley funeral so these blonde-haired angels see just how we roll. Swing down Hollywood and save my soul. Call out the chorus girls to dig that hole. I want a Busby Berkeley funeral when I go. Hey mama, you heard me right. I want a rainbow shining down on me in sweet black and white. Crank up the camera and let Sam Goldwyn know. Well, it's time for me to go. When this old heart grows weak and slow, kill the house lights and hit me with that celluloid glow. Alright, here we go. I want a Busby Berkeley funeral. Just me and Judy Garland going out for a stroll. Swing down Hollywood and save my soul. Call out the chorus girls to dig that hole. I want a Busby Berkeley funeral when I go. Alright, one more time. I want a Busby Berkeley funeral. Tell Cecil B. DeMille this is my legendary role. Swing down Hollywood and save my soul. Call out the chorus girls to dig that hole. I want a Busby Berkeley funeral. A Busby Berkeley funeral. I want a Busby Berkeley funeral when I go. All right. I'm so glad we had a few minutes to spend together, and I hope that this advice does you a little bit of good. See you next time.
So that's just one of the things we have on offer here at the Peculiar Book Club is a little, a little time, a little music, a little something on the way through the book land that we have. It's not the only thing we do, though, that's special, Rachel. We have something just for you.
Ooh.
And it's all, and time is spent in deep research on the part of Davey. Producer Davey spends hours with this particular, and we all love him for it. But the really exciting thing is you're not on your own. You're going to have some help. Davey, what do we have for Rachel today?
It's time for the quiz. And boy, I got to say that banjo song, I believe the kids would say that's a banger. That really took off there, didn't it?
He's great. Actually, Leanne's going to go see him. First of all, Amanda says she hopes Haley Campbell, who is on our show, watches this one. He's actually going to be the Mid-Atlantic weekend this weekend, and Leanne's going. So that's kind of fun. But 'tis quiz time.
It slaps, right? Amanda says it slaps.
It slaps, Amanda Johnson.
All right. So.
Oh, Chloe stepped in to just confirm. Yes, we call them bangers. Thank you, Chloe.
So, Rachel, I told you before we started that I went into your book with maybe the wrong attitude or the wrong expectations. I was expecting a little more erotic fantasy and had to very quickly switch my focus to, no, we're talking the science a little bit here too, because of course it's a Peculiar Book Club. We're going to get into science and all those things. So you did at the end though, you did bring sexy back, and we got into all sorts of things, including a little conversation about pornography.
Mm-hmm.
And I just noticed that in your book, you might have skipped over, you kind of talked about the old classic films and home video, and then you went right to the internet. And I feel like you left a very important part out. So we're talking about those 90s premium cable channels. This is a quiz all about Max After Dark. So we're going to see if you can guess the name of some of the hit Max After Dark. Now my internet search history is a little funny. So we'll see if you can guess the names of these dramas. So this erotic anthology drama series involved episodes where guest stars would rent the beach house in a fictional seaside resort called, was it A, Sultry Sands, B, Passion Cove, or C, Arousing Shores?
I'm quite stuck between A and B.
Peculiars, can you help her out?
My initial instinct was B, but I'm like, TV does love alliteration, but Passion Cove sounds more familiar to me. Then again, I'm going to go with B. That was
Right. She's going with B. And the answer is, it turns out that Davey loves alliteration, but Cinemax loves Passion Cove.
Oh, we had a lot of B's. It just took a second for it to for you guys to catch up. But look at all those B's.
Passion Cove, a classic, of course. We all remember Passion Cove. I don't know.
I think I was like 5, but it did ring a bell. So
I'm not gonna lie. I was a teenager at this time. I may remember a few of these.
Nothing wrong with it.
All right. This erotic anthology series centered on callers to a fictional radio show recounting their sexual exploits. Was it A, The Hotline, B, Risque Radio, or C, Tantalizing Talk?
We have some alliteration things in here again.
I'm pretty sure it's Hotline. Though again, Risky Radio feels plausible.
Risque, you would listen to some Risque Radio, wouldn't you? That would be.
I would listen to some Risque
Radio. That's what
I
would call it, but I think it was called Hotline.
Got a lot of A's in the chat, yeah.
Amanda, I'll say A.
I think the takeaway here is that producers in the 90s were bad at naming their erotic content, but I think it was A. Hotline.
The answer is Hotline. You are correct. All right. And question number 3. Now I got a little tough on question number 3. This softcore anthology show. By the way, this is the way Wikipedia describes them. So this softcore anthology show was formatted around a hotel proprietor reading letters from former guests talking about their adventures falling in love at the hotel. Yes, they claim falling in love. I would say falling into something else. I will note that there were 2 proprietors, one for season 1 and a different proprietor for season 2.
Was
it this one? The first 2, I was like
Euphoria, Hotel Ecstasy, or Hotel Erotica?
This one is tough because the first 2, I was like, I'm pretty sure I've heard of these before. This one, I'm like, I have definitely.
Stephanie Smith said C, and she's been on. I gotta say, Stephanie's been on fire.
Okay, I trust the chat, so let's go with C.
The Peculiars are they really?
This was maybe too deep of a cut for a time, for an era when I was like 6 years old for me to know. But I think C.
It was Hotel Erotica. You are correct.
You Peculiars are on it today, Kristen, Amanda, Stephanie, Silvery Blue Queen. Y'all are here.
What's up? Am I the only one that flipped across these channels as a teenager? I think some of you flipped across Cinemax once or twice. There was also Real Sex on HBO.
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh. I would never have dared. I was too busy. I was too busy reading fan fiction.
Silk stockings.
I really wanted the silk stockings question. Oh yeah, nailed it.
Great job, Rachel.
Oh God, that's great. It's really funny because I didn't know this, but my brother, so we lived out in the middle of nowhere, and I mean nowhere. And my brother, who is awesome and great, and I love him, he wanted to watch these shows, but all we had was this big satellite dish, and you had to like manually turn it. So it's like midwinter, and he's outside like with a wrench, like, please. So
wow, that's amazing.
I will tell you the desperation of teenage boys. We were on a school trip at a hotel in Toronto where the adult channel was almost blocked. Someone figured out on the trip that if you went from like channel 36 down to channel 34, it was on channel 35 and it would skip over that channel. So you would see it for a second. And every boy on the class trip knew back and forth. Yeah, every boy knew. That's how desperate teenage boys were.
I mean, listen, I learned how to clear not the entire search history, but individual page search history on Internet Explorer because of fanfiction.net. Like,
yeah.
I
think life finds a way.
You probably could have done a whole chapter about the invention of the incognito tab. That probably
absolutely
changed things.
Yeah. Kids today don't know how good they have it.
So
I was in there clicking boxes to be like, I wasn't reading Teen Titans porn. Absolutely not. No. What I read, the Teen Titans stuff I read was extremely tame. It was PG-13 at best, but
yeah. There's some good
have anyone
fan fiction out there, just so you know. Just say. Kristen Messon says, while we're laughing, Henry James and farts. Because right, he's got all these. Yeah, okay.
James Joyce.
Kristen,
James Joyce. Yeah,
James Joyce. Even worse. Yes, that's. Well, Irish. Yeah, there would be a lot of cabbage.
Maybe
probably.
Also Henry James. That
I did have a question about James Joyce though, because in his flowery language, he talked about farts that only she could produce, and I thought maybe was it misinterpreted? Was it another bodily function that he enjoyed?
No.
It was farts? Okay.
Yeah, no. He was literally talking about screwing farts out of her. But again,
literature is not interesting. They don't realize the classics have some hidden gems in there. Totally there.
No, and James Joyce, he was like, I would know the fart of my dear Nora at a crowd of farts in a room. They're not like other women's farts. They're really sexy farts.
They're totally different.
Listen, it seems like they had a really wonderful, healthy relationship. And it's just, he just happened to be James Joyce. So when you wrote about how much he liked her farts, it was James Joyce writing like James Joyce about his wife's farts. So really just a
I gotta say,
a gift to the universe.
There are dangers in being married to a writer, I will say. Mark knows this, because you never know what I'm like. That'll be good in a chapter. You just never know what's going to appear there, and then later they're like, "Wait, is this about?" I'm like, no, I just can't, it's a verisimilitude issue. But yes, I can see that as being a problem. Being married to, I think being married to a writer is dangerous anyway, but James Joyce in particular, and probably Henry James for that matter.
I do see people in the chat saying but was it a queef? But he talks about the particulars in a way that make me think he's really talking about that kind of fart, a capital F fart. He probably loved her queefs too. Let's be real.
Just air coming out. Right? It's a Greek and Roman idea.
He's talking about gas. He's talking about gas.
It's like, I fed my lover beans and cabbage.
I would not be surprised if there's a letter about that. So
probably somewhere there's got to be. So anyway, those of you who don't get interested in historical literature, I just got to say there's some nuggets that you might, hopefully not literal ones. But then again, the fart's got to come from somewhere. So I do want us to talk because we have to talk about crocodile dunk suppositories. This is a thing that we have to mention. Okay. So for a moment, y'all have any, burning questions about historical contraception? Because we have answers.
You've come to the right place.
You have. They're still stuck on farts over here. There's a lot of fart happening over here.
Did any of the historic contraception like make sense to you a little bit? Like, did you at any moments you're like, well, I get where they were at.
Well, the crocodile dung, actually, that as I was writing about it, I was like, no, this makes sense because for folks who, have not gotten to this part of the book, perhaps, or who glazed over it, crocodile dung is one of the most ancient contraceptives we have, or is an ingredient in some of the most ancient recipes for contraceptions that we have on the record from ancient Egypt. And it's all part of this very long history of something that is being molded to block the cervix, which makes sense because if sperm gets in the cervix, you're out of luck. Nothing can't. That's the doodle that can't be undid, as they said in the movie Juno. And a lot of like pre-modern contraceptive efforts ignored that fact. We're about kind of trying to undo the act once it happened. Right. And so the more effective ones we see in history are the ones that had that physical block. And then the most effective ones also incorporate something that changes the pH of the vaginal and cervical microbiome, because sperm need they're very picky. They're very fussy. And there's modern contraception that relies on just like changing that environment enough to make sperm not do so well. Yeah. And so Andrew
Girl wants to know how they collected it. Kristen wants to know how fresh it needed to be.
Oh,
Amanda wants to know why they're not selling it now in capsules.
Listen, that's all great questions. I do not have any information on how they harvested the dung for this particular use. It seems like it was kind of like dried in the sun first. It was like it wasn't like super fresh. It was like pasty, a little a little less visceral, a little sterilized by the sunlight. But then it also was often mixed with honey, which we now know is a very very effective antimicrobial, and often ground up acacia leaves, which we know produce lactic acid, which is a really effective spermicide. So I was actually,
maybe.
Yeah. Like looking at it, I didn't there wasn't any like one paper I read that was like, yeah, this probably worked. But I was just kind of like, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
and they, by the way, for those of you who might not, like, this wasn't just something, you didn't take this orally. This went inside. No,
it was a
went up.
You
smeared
it. It was a smear.
I can't tell Amanda Johnson that I tried Googling to see if you could buy crocodile dung, and nothing came up on Google Shopping, which is a good thing. It is really hard to buy.
There are definitely, I mean, so Phexxi, which is one of the most recently approved like new contraceptive options, is essentially a gel that you use like a couple hours before intercourse, and it changes the pH of that whole ecosystem. So we have kind of circled back around to that being, you'll see ads for it. Actually, I forget her name, but the actress from Schitt's Creek does the ads for it. And it's very like, no hormones in this vagina. Like, we're all natural. Nice. So I do like to think about like, how close are we to someone being like.
Someone actually just put on here, can you imagine the actual like, the commercials we would have for crocodile dung suppository, and Inez, where'd she go? Inez was just saying that, right, they worshipped crocodiles and they feared crocodiles. And so it was also kind of like, so my favorite thing, so we had crocodile dung suppositories at the museum. No, I don't know where they came from. I don't know if they were real crocodile. I don't know. We had some. It's hard for me to know for sure. No one would tell me where they came from. It's just a little mystique surrounding it. But there's so many things going on there. Like, for one, I'm not sure, like, I would think that would not necessarily improve your love life. I would worry that it would give you a yeast infection. At the same time, if you have people who think farts are sexy, I mean, God knows, like, for all we know, is an aphrodisiac.
Totally. Well, and it was, the recipes that involved honey and like botanicals, I was like, this is starting to sound plausible to me as something that people could actually incorporate in their sex lives. Like, I think it was probably not literally like, and you shove the poop up there and that's it. One step.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that it was probably a little bit more. Well, some of my favorite though, and I was waiting for it, but you didn't have the weasel testicles, and that is one of my favorites. So we have to talk about some of the other weird ones that you came out that you knew would not work. I know that cutting off weasel testicles and taping them to your thigh is not. I mean, it will work on the weasel. The weasel will not.
Do you know? Though, do you?
You know, you gotta. I didn't actually give it a try. You're right. I feel bad for the weasel. The weasel's like, well, I'm done. No more babies here.
I mean, it might.
So, go ahead.
Oh, just it might keep sex from happening. There were definitely a couple of contraceptive methods that I talked about in the book where I was like, well, you know, if every time you have sex with someone, you start to violently sneeze and do jumping jacks immediately after, like maybe you won't have that much sex. So.
Did you try the leap? Did you hold your ankles and try to kick your butt just to see if it could be done?
Can't say. Well, I had done a lot of butt kicks because I did roller derby for a time very badly. So, and I have done exercises for roller derby that were, I think, functionally a Lacedaemonian leap. And listen, I didn't get pregnant, so.
There you go. You know, we all know how promiscuous
by chance, are you a Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon fan? Because we have a question about something going on in the show right now.
Oh, where's that at? I totally missed it.
I mean, I haven't been watching House of Dragon, but I did read. Tansy tea comes up in Game of Thrones. I assume it's also what they use in House of Dragon.
Like a morning after tea?
Yeah, so blue tansy is it can induce a late period or even an early abortion. You know, I talk about herbal methods in the book a bit because there are some that it's very clear that they were used effectively or are still used effectively in different parts of the world. And the difficulty is honestly in how poorly they've been studied and how unregulated they are. Right. So what I say in the book is very much not like, don't use herbal remedies, and more like, don't try herbal remedies if you don't have like access to someone who has like that traditional oral history or is a trained herbalist. But like the potency of herbal contraceptive and abortifacient options is like very real, and blue tansy is often an ingredient in an herbal.
Pennyroyal and suavine are both used to, and the problem is dosing, because if you get the dose wrong, it can make you violently ill.
Liver toxicity is a real concern. So again, it's like, it's not that they were, I think sometimes they're lumped in with that sort of like, oh, old timey, they thought anything would keep them from getting pregnant, and that's not the case. Like a lot of these things can be very effective. It's just that like you do have to know what you're doing. Just because they're natural doesn't mean they can't absolutely send you into liver failure. So important not to be casual about that kind of thing.
Right. I'm glad then that wasn't the peculiar cocktail for the week. That was something else.
No moon tea for us today.
My favorite is that we had some historical like advertisements, and the advertisements kill me because they're like, you know, good for getting rid of blockages to your period. So if there's something keeping you from having your period, you should take this, you know, and it's just all the language around it is really,
marital hygiene. You know, you got to clean that uterus right out. Everybody knew what that meant, but it is really funny to look back.
Amanda Johnson asked, were the animal testicle implants in there? I only just made it past halfway, but my favorite is Kristen answers, yes, both slivers and nuts. Slivers and whole nuts.
Yeah, we had both the total crack, like he wasn't even trying to pretend he was actually implanting a testicle, and the guy who very earnestly tried to implant testicles. both failed, but one of them believed in what he was doing and the other one probably didn't. And that does make a difference for me, you know?
Well, I'm from the book that I'm researching next, which will come out in the future when I'm
very excited about
writing. Thank you. Intermediaries. But one of the things I do talk about is Charles Edward Sigard implanting himself with crushed dog testicles. There's a recipe, like gently crushed dog testicles, and then he would implant them in himself and then give these like pop-up talks where he was like, I am very virile.
Well, and it's like when when we're talking about like a dilution of the testicle going into the bloodstream or being injected in the testes, you're like, maybe you got a little testosterone from that.
Somewhere
like,
there, maybe. Yeah.
Could be. But yeah, the whole just like nut transfer situation definitely did not do that. So
humans are so weird.
Here they are.
Why did they have to be crushed? I don't know. You know what? It read like a recipe. Like I felt like I was preparing some kind of dish.
Everybody knows you don't mince testicles.
A nice tapenade.
Crush that whole thing. We're running out of time, but Leanne has a question, which I actually had too. I love the cover for this book. I love the fact that in the new one, Bill Nye has like signed the foot of the happy boy guy. So where did this come from?
Great question. So as some of you may know, authors really don't get any say in the cover of their books. There was one conversation where I was like, thank Monty Python, not like Secret Diary of a Call Girl. Like, please don't put like a sexy pair of lips on this book and make people think that they're getting like a sexy book. But this cover is by Pete Garceau, I think, if I'm saying his name correctly. And he's just like the best. His covers are all the best. And, they sent this to me and I was like, this is absolutely perfect. I'm thrilled. So I really can't take credit for it. I'm sure there are some things I said to them that helped them zero in on this vibe. One thing that has come up is that one boob, which I feel like is a perfect amount of boob for a book cover. Like I've tried to do some like promoted TikTok videos back when I was really hustling at the launch, and it would be like, there's a boob in this. And I was like, oh no, maybe that's something my publisher should have thought of. But yeah, it's also like coincidentally kind of my signature color. If I'm going for an accessory, it's usually this little, it's kind of like mint green blue. So listen, like I said, I can't take any credit. I can't take credit for the blurbs because I got those with blood, sweat, and tears. But that's the worst part of writing a book. If any author tells you otherwise, they're lying.
You go to your friends and colleagues and be like, I love you. You're great. So could you please read my book and write something nice? Thank you.
And also be like, but if you can't, it's totally fine. I'll be fine.
I won't cry in my pillow at night. It'll be totally okay. Well, I love it. I don't know if it comes from a painting. I was actually like searching for it to see if it came from a painting because
it's a historical illustration of some sort. I don't know the title of the work, which is a great. I really should have found that out at some point, but it hasn't come up. But I'll try to find that out.
It is awesome. I love the fact that she's like riding him like a horse, but also
she's got that jaunty little bow. They're just he's in a weird leaf crown. They're both wearing socks.
They are both wearing socks, which I thought
socks
was really
come
funny.
up a lot. People are often like, "What's with the socks?" And I'm like, I don't know.
Strange, but I had a morbid. When I was a small child, the one thing that freaked me, I don't know why, but the thing that freaked me out the most about the sex talk was I was like, are you all the way naked or do people wear socks? And I was like really distraught because I thought socks would like blow the whole mood. And my mom was like, well, sometimes people wear socks. And I was like, but then you'd be naked, but just with socks. Like I completely missed the part and it became the sock.
I love that.
Because I was so distraught about the socks. No socks. It's the Silvery Blue Queen.
Yeah, we'll have to put a poll on the Facebook page and see.
Some people are sock people, some people are not sock people. You don't want to yuck anybody's yum. But I do agree that it's delightfully goofy that these people are wearing socks. And I
like his face too, like Happy Joy Boy. He's just having a good day.
Yeah, they're having fun. And then on the back, we've got one of the mocha sex pots, which I talk about in the book. Very explicit pottery from
Right.
a Central American culture of your really they made a lot of porn in their ceramics. So good for them.
There's a
Love it.
now and the girl's like, wait, he's wearing socks. I was so distracted by how happy she seemed.
Maybe they're in a room full of Legos. I don't know.
I don't know. I have to say they look like they're living their best life, which we have been living our best life this evening, having you on the show. Thank you so much for being part of our big weird family. It's been great to have you on. We have already gone past time again. This happens like every single time. I know. But there is a Discord after party. So if you guys are like, oh my God, no way, we're not done talking about sex and socks and crocodile dunk suppositories, we have a Discord after party. You are welcome to go join that and take part. And it's Kristen says she got distracted by the boob and missed the song too. So you know what, maybe the boob is doing a job there. Maybe it's like keeping us from having a thing. So thank you all for being here. Thank you, Davey. Thank you, Rachel. Thank all of you peculiars. Please come back. We are having our next show is going to be the amazing, awesome, crazy Halloween party where we give away candy and we'll be in costume and Davey will be in costume.
Yeah, if you saw our last year's Halloween episode, we bring it. We don't mess around when it comes to costumes. I got something in the bag this year. You better bring it, peculiars.
Yeah, and don't forget, you do have to send me your pictures, so you can't very well be in the costume contest if you don't send me your pictures. So I put that in the newsletter. Also, if it's your birthday month in October, we'll give you a shout out because it's my birthday month in October, the 24th. Ooh. Just so y'all know, I'm leaving the country tomorrow and I'll be back on the 24th. So there will be a slight hiatus of brandiness, but I'm sure I'll be on Twitter. And I can't wait to see you next time, joining us at a place where if you're weird, you're family.
You got the blue bottle blues when you wake up in the night. Don't make a big mistake, 'cause you can never make it right. When you reach out for the vial, feel the ridges in the glass. It's a matter of survival, baby, better watch your back. There is no antidote